Thank you for joining the Business Over Breakfast podcast. I'm your host, Steven Rosenthal, and we are going to be jumping into another great episode, learning how I am starting to grow this business. All right, there we go. It's got a new setup here today. If you notice, I am here at my office. I just opened up a office here in Wilmington, Delaware, which I'm super excited about, and just got the internet up and running today. So went and figured I would hop on the Business Over Breakfast show with you here today and test out the new mic setup, the new monitor, and the new space. So very excited. Haven't gotten much furniture yet here at the office. Just got my two L desks and some monitors on my dock, my mics, just the essentials to start getting some work done here. So, but the topic for today is what to do to grow your business. This is a interesting thought, and I think it is one that is obviously important to many people, but it's also one that I think I'm well equipped to speak to, since my business, is growing, but also I'm in the business of growing other people's businesses. As an outsourced sales and marketing agency and consulting company, my goal is to help your company grow. So how to grow your business. In the internet information age, one of the main things that I want to talk about is, and Dave Gerhardt just put together an awesome blog post on his private Patreon channel. So DGMG, if you look it up on LinkedIn, Dave, CMO of Privy, really great group to be a part of that I subscribe to, and am in his insiders group as well. And it's really great. But I was reading in his blog post, and this is actually, the reason that I started the podcasting agency is what's called the anchor, the anchor content, or your anchor piece of work, or something that is going to drive business for you. So basically, what am I getting at there? So basically what I look at when trying to grow a business is what can offer me both short-term and long-term opportunity and benefits. So let's take a podcast as an example here. So to grow your business, and say you wanted to use a podcast to grow your business. Now, there's multiple ways to do this, but I'm going to zero in on one super tactical way to do this that has both long-term and short-term ramifications. So say, we are a CPA firm that is selling to, I'm in the Wilmington area here, that's selling to, small businesses from $2 million annual revenue to $30 million annual revenue. CPA firm, selling to businesses $2 to $30 million of annual revenue. Now, then I think about, okay, as a CPA firm, I'm also, really focused on the construction industry, that has local, local concept to that. Also in Wilmington, there's a lot of really great, not breakfast chains, Business Over Breakfast, a lot of restaurant groups, Platinum Dining Group, the Big Fish group, Harry's dining group. So there's a couple big dining groups that have great restaurants in the area, and the restaurants do really well here. So let's say I'm, primarily focused on construction, restaurant, say maybe like hotels, maybe pharmaceuticals is a little bit too big for, locally based. So let's say that's the market that I'm focused on. So how am I going to grow my business with a podcast? So The first thing that I would look at, how can I get some short-term wins? I would say that you should take the time to strategize and spell out what exactly a typical buyer at one of these companies looks like to you, and then understand exactly what they care about and why they care about it. And this is good in general, even if you're not using a podcast to grow your business, but understand, who is buying, who is supporting the buyer. So, who's the classic decision maker, supporter, or champion, but who's supporting the buyer in that decision, and what do they care about? Not only what do they care about that drives them to purchasing your solution, but what do they care about in their professional life in totality, comprehensively. So let's say, and then it's always good to really narrow down and be super specific about who you're targeting. So let's say we're just going to do the construction industry only. So, if we're doing the construction industry only, CPA firm. So obviously, this is about the books, the finances, managerial accounting, financial accounting, bookkeeping, as well as strategic decision-making, maybe investment opportunities, growth, things like that is what these people will care about. So I would first use the podcast as a way to, again, get in front of and talk to your biggest clients. So I would bring them on the show, maybe have a conversation, 15, 20-minute conversation before you turn the mics on or before your scheduled interview, and talk to them about what you're hoping to accomplish with this show, and make it about the listener. So, say, hey, we've seen, a lot of growth in the construction industry here in Wilmington, Delaware. You're involved in that industry. Obviously, that's near and dear to you. So what I would like to do is develop a show that helps construction companies understand what the opportunity is in their books and in their finances, as well as just help educate them around, different things that they should be considering. How do I go from, one niche to the next with residential to commercial? How do I find vendors? How do I, you probably come up with a better list than I, in this example. But have that conversation with your current clients. Bring on a couple of your biggest clients onto the podcast and interview them around what they're doing to grow their business, how they think about the finances in their business. What does investment strategy look like for them? How do they develop a management team? Things that the CEOs of your potential customer or your prospect would care about. Develop content in interview form from someone like them that's a current client of yours. The reason you want to start with a current client is naturally they're speaking to you as one of their vendors. Naturally, they'll start talking about how you have helped them with different parts of growing their business. So that will be helpful in the short term. You'll be able to develop some customer case studies. Now so the first couple episodes, I would really focus around, introducing the podcast through interviews with your current customers. Next, what I would do is develop a list of series that you want to focus on. So say, you want to focus on the supplier relationships for construction companies, and then what I would do is then go and, from your construction customers, develop a list of all of the suppliers that they, work with. And then go and interview either the rep, VP, area director, interview those people about how they support their construction customers. That'll be super helpful. Will also drive traffic of your potential customers onto your show. So I would work on a couple series like this that are broad enough so that a variety of listeners would be interested, but narrow enough that it's really focused on a specific audience. So, you don't want to talk about how to develop the residential lot on the corner of 16th and Lincoln in Wilmington, because you're going to, there might be two people that want to listen to that. And I'm assuming that you'll be able to do business with more than them. So you want to broaden it a little bit, but you don't want to broaden it so big that, you're not specifically speaking to your specific potential buyer. So, current client interviews, oftentimes that will build further your relationship with that current client. And then series based off of specific areas that your potential customers are interested in. So what does this accomplish? This is accomplishing a listenership of potential buyers of your services that are listening to educational content that isn't necessarily related to your services. So then what do you do with that information? Now, there's a ton of things, but one of the big things that I think that I would encourage you to do in the short term is to have the topics that you cover splice and diced and indexed. So, and that's, you can use audio editing software. Camtasia is a good one. Audacity. Camtasia is more for video as well. And you can get into some higher, quality platforms to use this, or we could do it for you. But slice and dice that, index it, and then make it available to your salespeople. So when a salesperson is talking to, a local roofing company here in the Wilmington area, and they're talking about how they struggle with negotiating good terms with their suppliers, and your salesperson can open up that shared spreadsheet, type in terms with suppliers, and it will, in the find, Control F in Excel spreadsheet, then it'll pull up episodes that are related to the topic that, you're discussing with a potential customer, and you send them that information after your sales meeting. And this is establishing you as a credible source for them to get information from. So then the other big kind of longer term play is, after you're building this audience of potential prospects, if you own the podcast, and you are the arbiter, you are the medium through which they're gaining value, you can, with zero cost to you, start to plug your services in that podcast. And I would recommend that you do this after your interview, so that way it doesn't interrupt the flow or change the conversation that you have in the interview. But it helps to bring an element of, a funnel into that podcast. So, say, back to this example with construction companies, say you have a, market research of the opportunity zones in Wilmington, which is you can Google it, but it's a legislation allowing for tax benefits for developing in specific areas, called opportunity zones. So say you have a really great detailed blog post or ebook or, article around that, around the tax benefits for developing in opportunity zones. During the podcast, you could have a pre, mid, or post-roll voiceover that basically is saying, hey, if you found this content valuable, we really encourage you to go to our blog to learn more. Specifically, take a look at the blog post we did on opportunity zones. I think that's a really great segue into getting somebody onto your website. So podcast content, pushing them onto a deeper, more in-depth review of something that's valuable to them. Now, the reason why I used opportunity zones and tax exemption is, if you're a CPA firm, say, you want to, and you're trying to get these construction companies then to do business with you, if you're providing a lot of value in how you can take advantage of tax exemptions with, opportunity zones, then you could plug another call to action in that blog post and say, sign up for a free 30-minute consultation with one of our financial consultants around how to keep track of your spend or keep your books in order at a project level so that you can take advantage of these tax exemptions. Again, I don't really know anything about that particular topic, but this would be something that I think is a clear funnel for somebody to use. Now, people may think, well, I mean, are small business owners in Wilmington listening to podcasts? How would they find my podcast? First of all, big picture, 120% growth in the podcast space over the past 4 years. 55% of Americans are listening to podcasts. The people who are listening to podcasts on average listen 4 hours a week. So the attention is there and it's growing. I'd encourage you though, as the long-term play with a podcast is you need to build a listenership over time. So get started now before the growth happens later, and then you will be there once more of your audience is there. Also, everybody's on social media, and podcasting can serve as an awesome pillar to then parse up and plug into things like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And you could parse this up, do audiograms. You could turn on a video like this and say, thanks for tuning in on LinkedIn here. I had a really great conversation with so-and-so from Pella about Windows for you in the Wilmington area. Listen to this soundbite from our time together. Post that on YouTube, and then you will gain organic traffic of people coming into your podcast. So there's a sales element to this. I really focused on the marketing element to growing long-term audience and converting that audience into leads in an organic fashion. So hope you found this valuable. This is something I'm currently doing now for growing my customers' businesses and my own business. Just closed a mid 5-figure deal based off of a podcast with one of my software customers. So encourage you to take advantage of this awesome opportunity. Thank you. Oh. Thank you. Appreciate you joining again for this episode of the Business Over Breakfast podcast. If you have not already, make sure you subscribe and leave a nice review for us on whatever podcast directory, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, that you have chosen to consume this wonderful podcast. Make sure you tune in again, and we look forward to seeing you.